Jake Morrison stood at the back of the Great Hall and tried not to look bored. His job was simple: watch the doors and make sure no one caused trouble. He was good at his job, but ceremonies like this made him sleepy. The hall was huge, bigger than any building Jake had ever seen on Earth. The ceiling went up so high that clouds could form up there. Strange lights floated in the air without wires or poles to hold them. Everything here reminded Jake that he was very far from home. 47 different alien species sat in circles around the hall. Some looked almost human. Others looked like giant bugs or walking trees. A few were just floating balls of light that somehow had voices. Jake had been in space for 2 years now, but he still felt amazed when he saw so many different types of life in one place. Ambassador Lisa Grant sat with the other human diplomats in the third ring. She wore her best blue uniform and looked very serious. The humans were still new here. Earth had only joined the Galactic Council 50 years ago. Most of the other species had been here for thousands of years. Jake checked his watch. The ceremony had been going on for 3 hours. His feet hurt and his back was getting stiff. He wondered why they needed so many speeches just to watch some aliens pick their marriage partners. "The bonding ceremony will now begin," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Council Prime. Kethaval floated above the center of the hall. Jake could never tell what species the Council Prime was. It looked like a tall shadow wrapped in silver cloth. It had been the leader here for over 1,000 years or so, people said. "Those who wish to claim a mate may now come forward," the Council Prime announced. Jake perked up a little. Finally, something might happen. He had heard about this tradition but never seen it before. Apparently, any unmarried alien could point at someone from another species and claim them as a husband or wife. It was supposed to create peace between different worlds. A few aliens stood up and walked to the center. Jake recognized some of them. There was a tall, blue-skinned Alterian male who pointed at a female from the Centauri delegation. She nodded and smiled. They had probably arranged this beforehand. A crystal being from the Silicate Collective chose a furry, cat-like Felinian. The Felinian's tail swished happily. Another planned match, Jake figured. This went on for about 10 minutes. Jake counted 12 couples so far. All of them seemed happy about their choices. Most of them had clearly talked about this before the ceremony. Then something unexpected happened. A figure stood up in the Zephyrian section. Jake's attention snapped to her immediately. Even among the tall, gray-skinned Zephyrians, she stood out. She was wearing black armor that seemed to absorb light. Her silver hair was pulled back in a warrior's braid. Scars crossed her arms and face. Not ugly scars, but marks that showed she had fought many battles and lived. Jake knew who she was. Everyone in the galaxy knew Princess Zarathiel Vex. She was the greatest military commander the Zephyrians had produced in 500 years. She had never lost a battle. She had conquered 3 star systems and brought peace to 2 others. People said she was being groomed to lead the entire Zephyrian Empire someday. She was also, according to the files Jake had read, completely uninterested in marriage. She had turned down dozens of powerful suitors from her own species and others. Many people thought she would never choose a mate at all, but here she was, walking to the center of the hall. The entire chamber fell silent. Even the floating lights seemed to dim. 47 species held their breath. Princess Zarathiel stopped in the exact center of the hall. She stood perfectly still for a moment, her yellow eyes scanning the crowd. Jake could feel the tension in the air like electricity before a storm. Then, she raised her right arm and pointed, directly at him. "I claim this human as my mate," she said in a voice that carried clearly through the silent hall. Jake felt like someone had hit him in the stomach with a hammer. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His brain seemed to have stopped working completely. Every eye in the hall turned to look at him. Thousands of aliens stared at the human security guard who had just been chosen by the most famous warrior princess in the galaxy. Ambassador Grant jumped to her feet, her face pale with shock. The other human diplomats started whispering frantically to each other. The Zephyrian delegation erupted in angry hissing sounds. Jake could see a massive male Zephyrian, probably the princess's father, rising from his seat with rage written across his face. Council Prime Kethaval's voice cut through the chaos. "Princess Zarathiel Vex of the Zephyrian Empire, you have made your choice before the council. Do you confirm this selection?" "I confirm it," the princess said without hesitation. "Jake Morrison of Earth," the Council Prime continued, somehow knowing his name. You have been chosen according to the ancient laws. Do you understand that this selection cannot be refused or reversed? Jake's mouth was still hanging open. He tried to speak but only managed a small croaking sound. What? I don't, he stammered. Princess Zarathiel turned to look at him directly. Her yellow eyes seemed to look right through him. For a moment, Jake thought he saw something like amusement in her expression. The human will need time to process this, she said calmly, as is his right under galactic law. Ambassador Grant was on her feet now, speaking rapidly into her communication device. Jake could hear her saying things like emergency and Earth command and unprecedented situation. The hall erupted in noise as every delegation started talking at once. Some aliens seemed excited. Others looked angry or confused. The floating news drones that covered council events swarmed around Jake like mechanical bees. Jake just stood there, still trying to understand what had just happened to his quiet, boring life. He had come here to guard a door. Now apparently he was engaged to marry the most dangerous woman in the galaxy. And according to the ancient laws that governed this place, he had no choice in the matter at all. Jake sat in the small human quarters aboard the diplomatic station and stared at the wall. 3 hours had passed since Princess Zarathiel had pointed at him in front of the entire Galactic Council. 3 hours, and he still felt like he was living in someone else's nightmare. Ambassador Grant paced back and forth across the room, talking rapidly into her communication device. She had been doing this since they left the ceremony hall. Yes, Admiral Sullivan, I understand this is unprecedented, Grant said for the 10th time. No, we cannot simply ignore galactic law. Yes, I know this complicates everything. Jake rubbed his temples. His head was pounding. When he woke up this morning, his biggest worry was whether the coffee machine in the break room was working. Now Earth's military leaders were having emergency meetings about his love life. The door chimed and Dr. Maya Patel entered. She was the human delegation's expert on alien cultures. She carried a thick datapad and looked very serious. How bad is it, Doc? Jake asked. Dr. Patel sat down across from him. It's complicated. The bonding laws are some of the oldest rules in the galaxy. They go back over 10,000 years. Once a selection is made in front of the council, it cannot be undone. So I'm trapped, Jake said. Not exactly trapped, Dr. Patel said carefully. But you do have obligations now. According to Zephyrian law, you must go through a trial period. If you pass their tests, the bonding becomes permanent. If you fail, she paused. If I fail, what happens? You die, Dr. Patel said quietly. Jake felt his stomach drop. They'll kill me? It's not that simple. The trials are dangerous. Many candidates don't survive them. But Jake, there's something else you need to know about Zephyrians. Dr. Patel activated her datapad. Images of tall, gray-skinned aliens appeared on the screen. Zephyrians are warriors. Their entire culture is built around strength, honor, and combat. They've conquered half their galaxy. They don't lose wars. Great, Jake muttered. I'm engaged to a species of super soldiers. But here's the interesting part, Dr. Patel continued. Princess Zarathiel has never shown interest in bonding with anyone. She's turned down offers from the most powerful males in her empire. Her choosing you has shocked everyone. Ambassador Grant finished her call and joined them. Earth Command is sending Captain Holland and Admiral Sullivan here immediately. They want to assess the situation. What's Earth's official position? Jake asked. Grant looked uncomfortable. Mixed. Some people think this could be a great opportunity for humanity. An alliance with the Zephyrian Empire would give us incredible protection and influence. Others think it's too dangerous. And what do you think? Jake asked. I think, Grant said slowly, that you're in a very difficult position. But I also think Princess Zarathiel didn't choose you randomly. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry. Grant checked the door scanner and frowned. It's her. Princess Zarathiel wants to speak with you. Jake's heart started beating faster. Should I let her in? It's your choice, Grant said. But Jake, remember, she's not human. Don't expect her to act like humans do. Jake took a deep breath and opened the door. Princess Zarathiel stood in the hallway alone. Up close, she was even more impressive than she had been in the ceremony hall. She was tall, almost 7 feet, and her black armor seemed to be made of some metal Jake didn't recognize. Her yellow eyes were bright and intelligent. May I enter? She asked politely. Jake stepped aside. The princess walked into the room with fluid, confident movements. She nodded to Ambassador Grant and Dr. Patel but focused her attention on Jake. You seem confused, she said. That's one way to put it, Jake replied. Why me? You don't even know me. Princess Zarathiel tilted her head slightly. I know more about you than you think, Jake Morrison. I have studied your species for 3 years. I have read reports of human military actions, your diplomacy, your culture. But why me specifically? You were part of the defense of Mining Station Alpha 7, she said. Jake blinked in surprise. That had been 2 years ago. Pirates had attacked a small mining station on the edge of human space. Jake's engineering unit had been sent to help repair the defenses. I read the tactical reports, the princess continued. When the pirates attacked, your commanding officer was killed. You took command of the civilian defense volunteers. You had no formal military training in tactics. I just did what seemed logical, Jake said. You held off 300 pirates with 42 civilians and a handful of security guards. You used mining equipment as weapons. You turned cargo containers into mobile shields. You evacuated the children first when the station started to fail. Jake remembered that day. It had been terrifying. He had just tried to keep people alive until the real military arrived. Most species would have either fought to the death or surrendered immediately. Princess Zarathiel said, Humans do something different. You adapt. You find new solutions. You refuse to give up even when the situation seems hopeless. So you picked me because of one battle? I picked you because of what that battle showed me about human nature. Zephyrians value strength and honor above all else. But we have become predictable. We solve problems the same way our ancestors did. We follow the old patterns. She moved closer to Jake. He caught a strange metallic scent from her armor. You represent something new, she said. Your species thinks differently than any other in the galaxy. I want to understand that. I want to learn from it. And if I don't want to be your learning experiment? Jake asked. Princess Zarathiel's expression didn't change. Then you will face the trials and likely die. But I do not think you are the type of human who runs from challenges. Ambassador Grant stepped forward. Princess, surely there must be some way to cancel this arrangement. Some diplomatic solution. There is not, the princess said firmly. The selection has been made before the council. It is binding under laws older than your civilization. What exactly do these trials involve? Dr. Patel asked. 3 tests, Princess Zarathiel explained. Physical combat, tactical thinking, and spiritual compatibility. Most candidates fail the first test. Most candidates are probably Zephyrian warriors, Jake pointed out. True. You will be the first human to attempt the trials. Jake felt a strange calm settling over him. The situation was crazy, but it was also becoming clear. He could try to run, but that would shame Earth and probably start a diplomatic crisis. He could refuse and die in disgrace. Or he could face whatever these trials were and try to survive. When do the trials start? He asked. Princess Zarathiel almost smiled. Tomorrow. I suggest you rest tonight, Jake Morrison. You will need your strength. She turned and walked toward the door, then paused. For what it is worth, she said without turning around, I hope you succeed. After she left, the room was silent for a long moment. Well, Ambassador Grant said finally, at least she seems to like you. Jake sat down heavily. Tomorrow he would start fighting for his life against alien warriors. But strangely he was starting to feel curious about Princess Zarathiel. She had studied his species for 3 years. She had read about his actions in battle. She had chosen him not randomly, but because she saw something in humans that interested her. Maybe if he survived, he might learn something interesting about her too. Jake stood at the edge of the combat arena and tried not to think about how many ways he could die in the next hour. The arena was a circle of black stone about 50 meters across. Strange symbols glowed along the walls. Thousands of aliens filled the seats above, all waiting to watch the human either prove himself or get killed trying. Elder Nixara floated above the center of the arena. She was ancient even by Zephyrian standards, her gray skin marked with ritual scars that told the story of countless battles. Her voice carried clearly through the space. The first trial tests the warrior's strength and courage in combat, she announced. Jake Morrison of Earth will face 3 Zephyrian champions. He may use any weapon available in the arena. The trial ends when either all champions are defeated or the candidate yields or dies. Jake looked at the weapon racks along the arena walls. There were swords, spears, energy weapons, and things he couldn't even identify. All of them were designed for Zephyrian hands, much larger than his own. Ambassador Grant and Dr. Patel sat in the diplomatic section, both looking worried. Captain Steve Holland had arrived that morning from Earth and was studying the arena with professional interest. Lieutenant Amy Chen, a pilot who had volunteered to be Jake's support team, gave him an encouraging nod. Princess Zarathiel sat with the Zephyrian delegation. Her expression was calm, but Jake thought he saw tension in the way she held her shoulders. Next to her sat a massive Zephyrian male, who could only be her brother. Commander Rex Vex. He was glaring at Jake with obvious hatred. "Let the trial begin," Elder Nixara announced. 3 Zephyrian warriors entered the arena from the opposite side. They were all huge, even by their species standards. Their gray skin was covered with battle scars and ritual tattoos. They moved with the fluid grace of professional killers. The first champion carried a sword that glowed with blue energy. The second had twin fighting sticks that sparked with electricity. The third was armed with a weapon that looked like a cross between a spear and a gun. Jake jogged to the weapon rack and grabbed the smallest sword he could find. It was still too big for him, but he could lift it. He also picked up a small energy shield and what looked like a simple metal rod. The Zephyrians spread out to surround him. This was how they always fought, as a team, using their superior size and strength to overwhelm their enemies. It was a good strategy that had worked for them for thousands of years. But Jake wasn't going to fight like a Zephyrian. The warrior with the energy sword attacked first, swinging the massive blade in a wide arc that would have cut Jake in half. Instead of trying to block or dodge backwards, Jake dropped to his knees and slid forward under the swing. He used the metal rod to strike the warrior's ankle, a spot where the armor had a joint. The Zephyrian stumbled, surprised. His species valued honor in combat, which meant facing your enemy directly. They weren't used to opponents who fought dirty. Jake rolled away as the second warrior's electric sticks crackling where his head had been. He threw the metal rod at the third warrior's weapon, not trying to hurt him but to confuse his aim. The crowd was making noise now. Zephyrians had expected to see their champions quickly crush the small human. Instead, Jake was running around the arena like a rabbit, striking quickly and then moving before they could hit back. "Stand and fight with honor," shouted the warrior with the sword. "I am fighting," Jake called back, leaping over a low wall that divided part of the arena, just not the way you expected. He had noticed something about the arena during his brief inspection. The weapons weren't the only tools available. There were also architectural features, walls, pillars, even the lighting systems. Jake grabbed a loose stone from the wall and threw it at one of the floating lights above the warriors. The light exploded in a shower of sparks, creating a momentary distraction. While the Zephyrians were looking up, Jake used his energy shield to trip the warrior with the electric sticks. The big alien went down hard, his weapons flying from his hands. Jake immediately grabbed one of the electric sticks and rolled away before the other 2 warriors could reach him. Now he had a better weapon, but he was still outnumbered and outmatched. The Zephyrians were learning to adapt to his strange fighting style. They were moving more carefully, trying to corner him, but Jake had spent 2 years as an engineer in space. He was good at looking at systems and figuring out how they worked. The arena's lighting system was more than just decoration. The glowing symbols on the walls were connected to a power grid that fed the entire complex. And one of the power nodes was right behind the warrior with the spear gun. Jake feinted an attack toward the warrior with the sword, then suddenly changed direction and sprinted toward the power node. The Zephyrian with the spear gun moved to intercept him, not realizing what Jake was actually targeting. Jake slammed his electric stick into the power node. The arena's lights flickered and went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a few seconds later, but for a moment the space was in complete darkness. In that darkness, Jake heard the sound of confused Zephyrian warriors bumping into each other and cursing in their own language. He used the confusion to move to a new position and grab a second weapon from the rack. When the lights came back on, Jake was standing on top of one of the arena walls, holding an energy spear in each hand. The 3 Zephyrian warriors were clustered together in the center, looking around for him. "Surrender now and I won't have to hurt you," Jake called down to them. The warrior with the sword laughed. "You think you have won, little human? Come down here and face us properly." "Why would I do that?" Jake asked. "This position gives me a clear advantage." He was right. From the wall he could attack any of them while staying out of reach. The Zephyrians would have to climb up to reach him, making themselves vulnerable. But more importantly, Jake had realized something about Zephyrian culture. They valued honor and direct combat above tactical thinking. They would rather lose fighting properly than win using unconventional methods. That was their weakness. Jake jumped down from the wall, but not where the warriors expected. He landed behind them and used both energy spears to strike at their armor joints, spots where even the strongest Zephyrian was vulnerable. The warrior with the electric sticks went down first, his armor's power supply damaged. The one with the spear gun tried to turn and fire, but Jake was already moving, using the first warrior's fallen body as cover. Only the sword warrior was left. He was the biggest and strongest of the three, and he was angry now. He charged at Jake with a roar that echoed through the arena. Jake didn't try to run this time. Instead, he did something that shocked everyone watching. He dropped his weapons and stepped forward to meet the charge with his bare hands. At the last second, Jake dropped to the ground and grabbed the warrior's ankle, using the big alien's own momentum to send him tumbling over Jake's shoulder. The Zephyrian crashed into the arena wall with a sound like thunder. The warrior tried to get up, but his sword was gone and his armor was cracked. Jake was already standing over him with one of the energy spears pointed at his throat. "Yield," Jake said quietly. The warrior looked up at him with something like respect in his yellow eyes. "I yield." The arena fell silent for a moment. Then Elder Nixara's voice rang out. "The first trial is complete. Jake Morrison of Earth has proven his worth in combat." The crowd erupted in noise. Some aliens were cheering. Others seemed shocked or angry. Jake could see Commander Rex Vex arguing furiously with other Zephyrians in their delegation, but Princess Zarathiel was standing and applauding slowly. When their eyes met across the arena, she nodded once with what looked like approval. Jake had survived the first trial, but he knew the hardest tests were still to come. Jake woke up in the medical bay with every muscle in his body screaming in pain. The Zephyrian healer, Ciliana, was running some kind of scanner over his ribs. 3 cracked ribs, extensive bruising, and a mild concussion, she said in accented English. "You will heal, but you should rest before the second trial." "When is the second trial?" Jake asked, trying to sit up. "Tomorrow," said a familiar voice from the doorway. Princess Zarathiel entered the medical bay. She had removed her ceremonial armor and wore simple black clothing that made her look less intimidating but somehow more impressive. She moved to stand beside his bed. "You fought well yesterday," she said. "My people are surprised." "Surprised that I won or surprised that I'm still alive?" "Both," she almost smiled. "Zephyrians have been using the same combat techniques for thousands of years. They were not prepared for your creativity." Jake shifted painfully on the bed. "Is that why you picked me? Because I fight dirty?" "I picked you because you think differently," she said. "But there is more to it than that." Healer Ciliana finished her scans and quietly left them alone. Princess Zarathiel sat down in the chair beside Jake's bed. 3 years ago, I was studying human military reports," she began. "My father wanted to know if your species posed a threat to our empire. Most of the council members dismissed humans as weak and primitive. But you didn't. I read about your wars. Not just the battles, but how you fought them. Other species either surrender quickly or fight to the death. Humans do something else. You adapt. When your strategies fail, you create new ones. When your weapons break, you make new weapons from whatever is available." She paused, looking out the medical bay's window at the stars beyond. "There was one report that particularly interested me," she continued. "A human colony ship that was attacked by pirates near the Vega system. The ship was damaged and had no weapons. The colonists were mostly farmers and scientists." Jake waited for her to continue. "The pirates demanded surrender. Instead, the humans used their agricultural equipment to create improvised weapons. They turned their greenhouses into fortified positions. They used their knowledge of plants to create smoke screens and chemical irritants. They held off the pirates for 6 days until military help arrived." "I remember hearing about that," Jake said. "It was before I joined the space service. The pirates had superior numbers, better weapons, and more experience. But they lost because they could not predict what the humans would do next. Every time they thought they had won, the colonists found a new way to fight back." Princess Zarathiel turned to look at him directly. "That is when I realized that humans might be the most dangerous species in the galaxy," she said. "Not because you are strong or fast or have good weapons, because you never stopped trying to win. So you decided to marry one of us? I decided to learn from one of you. Marriage among my people is not about romance, Jake Morrison. It is about creating alliances and gaining strength. By bonding with you, I gain access to human thinking. Earth gains the protection of the Zephyrian Empire. Jake felt a strange mix of disappointment and relief. At least she was being honest about her motivations. And if I don't survive the trials, then I will have learned something about human limitations, she said matter-of-factly. But I do not think you will fail. The door chimed and Ambassador Grant entered, followed by a man Jake didn't recognize. The stranger was tall and gray-haired, wearing the uniform of an Earth Defense Force general. Jake, this is General Carlos Rivera, Grant said. He's Earth's top military strategist. He came here to assess the situation. General Rivera shook Jake's hand carefully, mindful of his injuries. Son, do you have any idea what kind of political storm you've created? I'm starting to get the picture, Jake said. Half the Galactic Council thinks this bonding is a brilliant move that will elevate humanity's status, Rivera continued. The other half thinks it's a threat that needs to be stopped. We've intercepted communications suggesting that some species are planning to intervene. Princess Zarathiel stood up sharply. What kind of intervention? The kind that involves making sure Jake doesn't live to complete the trials, Rivera said grimly. That would violate galactic law, the princess said. Since when do conspirators care about law? Grant replied. Princess, is there any way to provide additional security for Jake? The trials are sacred, Princess Zarathiel said. Outside interference is forbidden, but... She paused, thinking. There may be another way. That evening, Jake found himself in Princess Zarathiel's private quarters. The space was surprisingly simple. Just a bed, a desk, some weapons mounted on the walls, and a large window showing the stars. It wasn't what he had expected from a royal princess. Tell me about yourself, she said, offering him a cup of something that smelled like cinnamon and metal. What do you want to know? Everything. Your childhood, your family, your dreams. If we are to be bonded, I should understand who you are. Jake sipped the drink. It was actually quite good, though it made his tongue tingle slightly. I grew up in a small town in Colorado, he began. My parents were both engineers. They taught me to look at problems as puzzles to be solved, not obstacles to be feared. Do you have siblings? A sister. She's a doctor now working on Mars. She always said I was too curious for my own good. And what did you dream of becoming? Jake thought about that. I wanted to build things. Bridges, buildings, spaceships. I liked the idea of creating something that would last longer than I would. Princess Zarathiel listened intently. And now you are here, far from your home, preparing to face trials that could kill you. Do you regret coming to space? No, Jake said without hesitation. Even with everything that's happened, I don't regret it. Earth is beautiful, but it's small. Out here, there are infinite possibilities. Even if those possibilities include dying in combat with alien warriors. Jake looked at her carefully. Princess, can I ask you something? Yes. Why haven't you ever bonded with someone from your own species? You could have your pick of any Zephyrian male in the Empire. For the first time since he had met her, Princess Zarathiel looked uncertain. Because they are all the same, she said finally. Strong, honorable, predictable. They would give me strong children and political advantages, but they would not challenge me to grow. They would not show me new ways of thinking. And you think I will? I know you will. You have already begun to. She moved to the window and stared out at the stars. Jake Morrison, there is something I must tell you. The second trial tomorrow will not just test your tactical thinking. It will also test your willingness to work with me as a partner. We will face the challenge together. What kind of challenge? A simulation. We will be placed in a scenario where we must cooperate to survive. Most bonding candidates fail this trial because they cannot adapt to working with a Zephyrian mindset. Jake joined her at the window. And you think I can? I think you are the first being I have ever met who might surprise me, she said softly. For a moment they stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Jake realized that he was beginning to see Princess Zarathiel not just as an alien warrior, but as a person who was trying to grow beyond the limitations of her culture. Maybe, just maybe, they could learn something valuable from each other. The alarm started blaring just as Jake and Princess Zarathiel were about to begin the second trial. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the station, and automated voices announced security alert in dozens of different languages. Elder Nixara floated quickly to the center of the trial chamber. All delegates remain calm. This appears to be a technical malfunction. But Jake could see that Princess Zarathiel didn't think it was a malfunction at all. Her hand was already on her weapon, and her yellow eyes were scanning the room for threats. "This is not an accident," she said quietly to Jake. "Someone is making their move." Explosions echoed through the station. The lights flickered and went out completely for several seconds before emergency power kicked in. Through the chamber's windows, Jake could see small ships attacking the station's defense platforms. General Rivera's voice came over Jake's communication device. "Jake, we're under attack. Multiple species are involved. They're trying to get to you before you can complete the trials." Ambassador Grant's voice was tight with panic. "The council chambers are under siege. They're demanding that the bonding ceremony be cancelled immediately." Princess Zarathiel drew her sword. "Jake Morrison, the trials no longer matter. We must defend this station and everyone in it." Elder Nixara was speaking rapidly to other Zephyrian officials. "The attack is coordinated," she announced. 6 different species are involved. They have breached the outer defensive rings. Jake's mind raced. This wasn't just about him anymore. The conspiracy that General Rivera had warned about was real, and it was bigger than anyone had imagined. "What do they want?" Jake asked. "To prevent an alliance between humans and Zephyrians," Princess Zarathiel replied. "Some species see your adaptability as a threat. Combined with our military strength, they fear we would become too powerful." Another explosion shook the station. Jake could hear the sound of weapons fire getting closer. "Princess," Jake said, "forget about the trials. How do we stop this?" Princess Zarathiel looked at him with something like respect. "We work together. Your tactical thinking and my combat experience. But Jake, if we do this, you must understand we will be fighting for our lives." "I understand." She activated her armor's communication system. "All Zephyrian forces, this is Princess Zarathiel. Coordinate with the human defenders. Protect the civilian delegates." Jake opened his own communication channel. "Lieutenant Chen, Captain Holland, this is Jake. What's our status?" Amy Chen's voice crackled through the static. "Jake, we've got enemy forces on 3 levels. They're trying to cut off escape routes and trap everyone in the council chambers." "How many defenders do we have?" "Not enough. Maybe 200 total, including station security. But Jake, these attackers know the station layout better than we do. Someone's been planning this for a long time." Princess Zarathiel was coordinating with her own people. "My brother Rex is leading a counterattack on the main level. But the enemy has superior numbers," Jake thought quickly. "Princess, do you have access to the station's technical systems?" "Some access, yes. Why?" "Because I have an idea. But it's going to require trusting each other completely." He outlined his plan quickly. Princess Zarathiel listened, her expression growing more amazed with each detail. "That is highly unconventional," she said finally. "Will it work?" "It might. But Jake, if this fails, we will all die." "If we do nothing, we'll die anyway," she nodded. "Then we try your plan." What Jake had realized was that the attackers were using the station's own design against the defenders. They had studied the layout and were using traditional military tactics, controlling key corridors, cutting off communication, isolating their enemies. But Jake wasn't thinking like a traditional military commander. He was thinking like an engineer. The station was more than just a building in space. It was a complex system with power grids, life support networks, and transportation tubes running throughout its structure. Those systems could be used for more than their original purpose. Working together, Jake and Princess Zarathiel began implementing his plan. She used her access to redirect the station's transportation system, while Jake worked on the power grid and atmospheric controls. First, they cut power to the sections where the attackers were concentrated. In the darkness, the enemy forces couldn't coordinate effectively. Then they used the transportation tubes to move defenders quickly to unexpected positions. Instead of being trapped, the station's defenders suddenly appeared behind enemy lines. Finally, Jake did something that amazed even Princess Zarathiel. He used the life support system to create selective atmospheric pressure changes that disoriented the attackers while leaving the defenders unaffected. "How did you know that would work?" she asked as they watched enemy forces surrendering throughout the station. "I didn't," Jake admitted. "But humans are good at improvising. The battle was over in less than 2 hours. The conspiracy had involved 6 different species, but their traditional military thinking had been no match for Jake's unconventional approach, combined with Princess Zarathiel's tactical expertise." That evening, the entire Galactic Council reconvened in emergency session. The attempted attack had shocked many species who hadn't realized how threatened some felt by the potential human-Zephyrian alliance. Council Prime Kethaval addressed the assembled delegates. The events of today have shown us the importance of unity and cooperation. The bonding trials of Jake Morrison and Princess Zarathiel Vex will continue, but with the full protection of the Council. But Princess Zarathiel stood up. Council Prime, I request permission to speak. You may speak, Princess. The trials are no longer necessary, she said clearly. Jake Morrison has already proven his worth beyond any doubt. Today he showed that he can think strategically under pressure, fight alongside Zephyrian warriors, and protect those who cannot protect themselves. These are the qualities my people value most. She turned to look at Jake. More importantly, he has shown me that there are ways of solving problems that I had never considered. He has already made me a better leader and a better warrior. Jake stood up from his place in the human delegation. Princess Zarathiel, I have something to say too. The hall fell silent. When this started, I thought I was trapped in a situation I couldn't control, Jake said. But I've learned something about Zephyrian culture, and about you personally. You didn't choose me to possess me or to use me. You chose me because you wanted to grow and learn. He paused, looking around at the thousands of aliens watching him. I accept the bonding, he said clearly. Not because I have no choice, but because I choose to accept it. Princess Zarathiel's expression showed surprise and something that might have been joy. And I accept Jake Morrison as my true bondmate, she replied. Not for political advantage, but because he has shown me what partnership really means. The hall erupted in noise as delegates from dozens of species began talking at once. Some seemed pleased, others concerned, but most appeared impressed by what they had witnessed. 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the joint human-Zephyrian ship New Horizon. Through the windows, he could see both Earth and the Zephyrian homeworld, two very different planets that were now learning to work together. Princess Zarathiel joined him at the window. In the months since their bonding, they had discovered that their differences made them stronger rather than weaker. She had learned human flexibility and creativity. He had learned Zephyrian discipline and strategic thinking. Do you ever regret your choice? She asked. Jake considered the question. His life had become far more complicated and dangerous than he had ever imagined. But it had also become more meaningful. Never, he said. Though I have to admit, I never expected to end up married to the most powerful woman in 2 galaxies. Princess Zarathiel almost smiled. And I never expected to find a partner who could surprise me every day. Behind them, the New Horizon continued its mission, exploring uncharted regions of space with a crew that combined the best of both species. It was just the beginning of a partnership that would change the galaxy. Jake had started as a security guard with no choice in his fate. He had become a bridge between 2 civilizations, proving that sometimes the most important choices are the ones we make when we think we have no choice at all.